Hi, welcome everybody. Hello, my name is Sarah Alexander and I'm the new Executive Director of MOFGA, and I'm really excited to welcome everybody here on this lovely morning. We're very excited that you're here, and I'm excited to be in my first fair in my new role. So thanks everybody for coming out today. I want to just share, even though it's a cloudy day, I want to remind everybody that this entire fair and all of the electricity that MOFGA uses is provided by our amazing solar panels, and you can learn lots more about that. Yep, provides all the electricity for the fair and everything that we do here at MOFGA all year round. So even on a cloudy day, we're still producing enough energy, and all those other days that's everything we need here for MOFGA. I'm really excited this morning to introduce Tristan Noyes. Tristan is the Executive Director of the Maine Grain Alliance. It's an organization fostering the revitalization of local and regional grain economies. The Maine Grain Alliance seeks to preserve and promote grain traditions from earth to table and provides opportunities to learn and share how best to grow and use grains using a combination of traditional, innovative, and sustainable techniques. Tristan and his brother John co-founded Grow Maine, an organic farm in Aroostook County that specializes in producing leafy greens, potatoes, and ancient grains. And the farm sells produce to a diverse array of restaurants, colleges, independent markets, farmers markets, and mail-order customers. And most recently, Tristan has helped spearhead the Taste Maine's Future, an initiative focused on creating new sales channels for Maine food producers through education, storytelling, and celebratory events. And he's here today to talk about growing together, how we can reap the rewards of a passionate, interconnected community. So please join me in welcoming Tristan Noyes to talk with us more.
High enough for you, we can adjust that. Let's get it close.
Yeah, I think that's
good.
Good morning, everyone. What a privilege it is to be here and stand in front of you and to share my story and share the stories of our community with an organization and an event that has inspired us so much over the years. My name is Tristan Noyes, and I'm an organic farmer of Grow Maine Farm. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Grain Alliance, and I'm aspiring to be a community builder. I'm here to share the inspiring stories of passionate folks who are helping to shepherd in a new era of organic collaboration. Collaboration across industries is strengthening our cluster of businesses across our region, and collaboration across individuals is creating new friendships. Where one tiller of grain once grew, many more have sprung forth thanks to the sharing of knowledge and resources across our community. As I was thinking about where to start this morning, I think it made a lot of sense to start where I typically start, which is in my roots in Aroostook County. Aroostook is always a good place to start. It's the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut combined geographically. It's so big that most Mainers just refer to it simply as the county, as many of you know. It's big and it's beautiful, and right now it's humming with harvest. It's a tight-knit community in Aroostook that's coupled with a pervasive shared agricultural connections that lends itself to a culture of collaboration. It's the culture of the agra. So just take, for example, the very nature of Maine's largest agricultural crop, the potato. The history of growing potato successfully is a collaborative story, with folks from all different types of fields and industries lending their hands to harvest. If you were to pluck just some random person from Aroostook County and ask them, tell me some things about a potato, you'd likely learn a half dozen varieties, how they're grown, when they're planted, when they blossom, how they're harvested, and probably a half dozen other things that you wouldn't come to expect that some person might know. Not so long ago, Maine was one of the largest potato growing regions in the world. And when it came time to harvest potatoes, residents of northern Maine would tune their tune in to the Potato Pickers Special, which is now 50 years strong and still going, to learn which farms were digging that day. They needed hand crews to be able to harvest. People would come from far and wide, from Canada, the Allagash, and from southern locales to take part in the mid-September harvest season. These individuals oftentimes had other professions. They weren't necessarily farmers, but they shared that culture. And the collaborative nature of the harvest seemed to supersede everything else that's going on. And frankly, it still does. It was as if everything else was suspended for 3 weeks to help complete a very important mission. Still, schools get 3 weeks off from harvest, although that's something that's becoming less and less popular in some places. I'm hoping that it continues on, not just because farmers need help, but because it's so steeped in what it means to be from Aroostook County. To this day, if you visit my grandmother's barn and the attached lodging building that was used to house potato pickers, you'll see notes written all over the wall from many, many years of folks who came to harvest potatoes. Some would say hello to old friends who may be there later in a week or two. Others may just leave a note for someone that they haven't seen in a long time that might come back in a future year. It's sort of a mural, a time capsule that we're really proud to still have on our land, and a reminder of how important agriculture still is to the community. Dozens and dozens of pickers would line up in the field, watch the digger turn the earth, flopping the potato on freshly turned soil. They would then pick up the potatoes into a basket, lug the basket over to a barrel, dump the basket into the barrel, tag it with their number, and then it would be hauled away by a skilled team that was loading a truck on something that resembles something similar to if you go to an arcade and you see one of those hooks that come out and they go over and they try to grab the stuffed animal. It looks a lot like that, except these guys never miss. They would hoist on the potato barrels and then take them to the potato house. And my father worked the back of that truck for many, many years. It was a big honor when he was old enough to be able to hoist on. When the truck was full, they would unload those barrels in the potato house, and my father, at 12 years of age, weighed about 85 pounds. And he would roll a 165-pound full potato barrel up a narrow plank and deposit it into the potato house. My dad often joked that he received his PhD at the age of 12, his potato house degree. This type of teamwork literally involved everyone in the community, almost regardless of profession, and helped me understand from an early age the value of collaboration, and I think in many ways set the tone for some of the exciting collaborations across industry that we're now experiencing in the organic agriculture space. For many generations, our family has been involved in agriculture, but it seems that each generation is slightly adapting its approach. And in the two most recent generations, we've taken on an effort to grow organically. In fact, my parents, Kimber and Cindy Noyes, began an organic natural food store in the early 1970s in Maine. It was a bit ahead of its time. And at the same time, they began Noyes Flower and Plant Shop, a diverse store that for 45 years has grown vegetable seedlings, annuals, perennials, blooming plants, along with cut flowers for our community in northern Maine. Now, both of my grandparents on either side grew potatoes, as did their parents before them on both sides. So you can literally go Josiah, Alfred, Linwood, Clayton, Kimber, Tristan, they all grew potatoes. I think one of the most powerful ways in which we create a passionate community is through our stories. Everyone loves a good story, and our farm, we've been growing them for generations. So if you'll indulge me, I'll tell just a few that I think illustrate how interdisciplinary our agricultural history is and continues to be. My great-grandfather, Lester Townsend, is a terrific example of this. He was a dairy farmer, he was a potato farmer, and he was also a pharmacist. His day consisted of waking up at 3 a.m., doing the chores, milking the cows, having breakfast, heading in town, filling prescriptions, heading back out to the farm, working in the potato field, having lunch, then working in the field again, doing the chores again, milking the cows again, heading back into town, filling the prescriptions again, and then heading home to have supper, to go to bed, and then repeat it the next day. My grandmother says he was often a little cranky. His father, William Townsend, was also a grain grower, in addition to growing potatoes, something that my farm has taken on in recent years, and I'll talk much more about later. A story that has been passed down from us from generation to generation includes one day after a hot day of harvest, of harvesting oats and stooking them in the field. And if you've ever seen a field full of stooked grain, it's a really beautiful sight. We have a picture of him standing in a field with literally hundreds and hundreds of these grain that had been harvested and put into a circle to allow for the heads of the grain to dry down naturally in the field. A technique, incidentally, that's still one of the best ways to dry grain, although nearly not as efficient as running a combine now through your field. So on a day like that, he was covered in dirt, he was covered in chaff, he worked really hard. He came home to Brook, Maine, to his farmhouse, where my grandmother was actually born, in that farmhouse. And he walked into his kitchen, and he looked to his left, and the First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, was sitting in his kitchen. Now you can imagine his surprise to see the First Lady of the United States sitting in his kitchen after a long day of harvesting grain, and he had to do a triple take to make sure that he hadn't come into some kind of heat stroke. But sure enough, she and her secretary had stopped in to visit with our family on their way to Campobello Island. They often had a habit of stopping at some camps in Dyer Brook Island Falls area, just near Mount Katahdin, and they made a habit of learning from people along the way and visiting with folks who specifically had challenges physically, and also my grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, and so they often made an effort to try to visit with folks who had physical handicaps but were still very vibrant in their communities. So Eleanor Roosevelt truly cared about understanding the lives of people and sought to help them achieve their goals. And it's through stories like that that inspire us to think about the value of what we do on our land. Even our machinery helps us connect to one another. 3 or 4 years ago, actually I guess 5 or 6 years ago or now, we brought our 1963 Massey Ferguson, which is our trusted tractor that we use almost every day, into the mechanic to get it ready for use on our farm again. This mechanic had worked on our tractors in our area for the better part of 70 years. 70 years. He started working when he was 16, 15 years old at a local establishment that's still in the works today. Now he said to my father, who was standing beside me, your granddad, he wore this tractor out. And then your dad, he wore this tractor out. You've done a pretty good job at wearing this tractor out. To which my father responded, well, do you think you could tune it up so we can wear it out again? And he said, no problem. So visit with a farmer. Ask the farmer to tell you a story, and more often than not, the story will likely involve a tractor as a central character, or at the very least cast in a strong supporting role. For example, if you could ask my father about the time as a 12-year-old, he borrowed without permission his brand new, same 1963 Massey Ferguson to go to the baseball field. The story involves a steep downhill grade, a sweeping corner, and 4 wheels, 2 of which were hugging the asphalt, and 2 suspended in midair. You can ask my brother to recall the first time he rode with our father on the farm all H. The low sounds of the rhythmic putt, 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 and the engine revving to a full roar are beautifully etched in his mind. If you chat with my mother, she'll tell you about the time she was mowing fields with a sickle bar attached to our John Deere B with a narrow front end. In the same breath, she might also mention the time she ran it into the barn door because it has a tricky hand clutch. I think in many ways the tractor's at the heart of the story and of the farm. And these stories, they take us far afield. We listen to them every day and across all types of industries. These stories evoke nostalgia, joy, appreciation, and humor. And these are the central elements that help us to connect with one another, understand each other's perspectives, and seize upon unexpected opportunities. Upon going to college, I wanted to share with my friends and classmates a bit about my heritage. I went to Bowdoin College, and there we envisioned an agricultural space as areas not only for production of healthy produce for the dining halls, but also to use for cultivating a greater understanding and connection with natural history in the foods that we eat. And from that, the Bowdoin Organic Garden was formed. We collaborated with the Bowdoin Topsom Land Trust, who was in the midst of protecting a large parcel of land, and collaborating with a talented farmer, many of whom you likely know, by the name of Seth Crook from Crystal Springs Farm. Seth had just started on the farm, so we were basically in the same boat. And I can remember fondly planting peas early in the morning before dusting myself off to go take a final exam. Planting times and final times are not a great marriage. I hoped that the garden would live on after I left, and not only has it lived on, but it has flourished. Now in its 14th year, the Bowdoin Organic Garden is operated by the college's dining service and includes a garden manager, students and volunteers, in addition to growing vegetables, fruits, and flowers for use at the college's dining halls. It provides research opportunities for the faculty and agricultural experience and events for the greater college community. One of those early folks who I had a really strong connection with was Joel Cartwright, who was one of the founders of the Bowdoin Organic Garden. And together, along with 6 or 7 others, it was one of the most fun, memorable experiences of my college career. The Bowdoin Organic Garden is both educational and production garden, and it strives to produce nutritious food and encourage culinary and agriculture exploration throughout the Bowdoin community. And in a really strange twist of fate that only highlights the interconnectedness of our community, our farm, Grow Maine Organic Farm, now sells to Bowdoin College, and one of our primary competitors is the garden I helped to start. So thanks to that, I'm in competition with myself. After college, I hiked on the Appalachian Trail through Maine and New Hampshire before deciding to hitch a ride to Boston, where I followed another passion around global education. I loved my work, but I often found myself missing the connection to the people and the place of Maine agriculture. Now, my father, as you might have gathered from some of the stories I've told already, is a bit of an idea guy, and quite often I would receive a box postmarked from Caribou in Boston that would include a new business venture idea. For example, once I received 8 4-inch pots with planted grain in them, with a note that said, "Just add water, and you've got yourself organic catgrass." I still think it's a great idea. Maybe something we'll pursue in the future. But the idea that really hit me came in a very small envelope sometime later. Inside the envelope was a small piece of paper with a hand-drawn logo that he had colored in with a series of different colored crayons. The note said, "We grow Maine lettuce." You see there's a couple different things happening there. But there was just something about it that I loved. I loved the thought behind it, the care in which he had sent it to us, to me, and to my wife Catherine. And I think that the gesture just felt right in the time and place in which I received it. And so I put it on my refrigerator, and it hung on my refrigerator for 6 years. I was looking at it almost every day. I talked with my brother about it. I said, you know, someday we ought to do this. And then one day, we just decided to do it. And thus Grow Maine Organic Farm was born. And Grow Maine, lettuce we do, still. We set up our structure of our farm in a sort of unique way because we wanted to continue our roots in Aroostook County, but we knew that we needed to access a different kind of market outside of Aroostook. There's only so many people in that big, beautiful place. And so we set up a collaborative situation in which my brother John, who's here today, manages our operations, and I manage all of our relationships in southern Maine. As I mentioned, the concept for Grow Maine sprouted in our hearts long ago. And my brother John and I were raised to appreciate the soil and all the friends that we made on it. We experienced countless acts of generosity, a unique cultivation of ideas, and a hearty spirit imbued with a sense that nothing is impossible. Consequently, at its root, Grow Maine cares about kindness, quality, innovation, and tradition. And Mainers care deeply about their land, and especially what grows on it. Our farm provides organic, sustainably grown grains, lettuce, leafy greens, potatoes, flowers, and other vegetables to select Maine restaurants, specialty grocers, and directly to consumers. We've had a farm share, we've done mail order, we even have a Spud of the Month club. And it's amazing over the years how many folks, without very much effort on our side, have found that Spud of the Month club and asked that we send Aroostook potatoes to their homes now in places like Arizona, California. We even sent one to Hawaii one time. It shows the connection that folks have to the land in which they grew up. The farm consists and connects consumers to the land by sharing the entire growing process from seed to leaf and from farm to fork. We know that it's hard for folks to swing by our farm, so we had to get creative. So you might ask, how do you go about doing that? How do you foster community when miles separate us from the market that we serve? Well, there's some obvious ways. We've spent a long time trying to capture different types of social media presence, taking beautiful photos, creating videos, and even a podcast. Our podcast, though limited in the number of episodes, chronicles what life is like growing up on a farm in different time periods. You can listen to my 92-year-old grandmother speak about what it was like to grow up on the farm I described earlier in Patten, Maine. You can listen to my father talk about what it was like to sit and run the digger in the 1960s in Aroostook County. We also try to just make things fun and share a few fun facts with folks, like at 46.9 degrees north latitude, our farm is located further north than 2/3 of the Canadian population. That's here in Maine. Our plant hardiness zone is 3B, which is the same hardiness zone as Nome, Alaska. Our farmhouse and barn were built by Swedish pioneers in the 1870s from the lumber that was cut on our farm, hand-hewn, and uses wood pegs. And just a few years ago, while my brother and I were up in the top parts of our barn, we noticed someone had etched their name into the wood at the very top part of one of the cross beams. It said Wanstrom on it. It said Wanstrom -72. That's 1872. And we had not seen it before. This is just a reminder of how long folks have been caring about the land in our certain area. Moose, of course, are a common occurrence on our farm. And in fact, they're a bit of a nuisance because they eat our vegetables, especially our kale. And I've often thought that, and no one steal this idea, but we think that we're going to create some t-shirts that say "Moose ate my kale." Because it's true. We have the most antioxidant-laden moose in all of Aroostook County. Because of these efforts, we received a very unexpected invitation to, last summer, travel to Milan, Italy, to discuss the future of food with a group of students on a Global Student Leadership Summit. Our discussion presented students with a real-life case study. The goal was to discuss the advantages and opportunities and challenges of organic and conventional farming. Participants examined our farm from a perspective of an organic farmer and that of a conventional farmer. Through a collaborative discussion groups, each side made their best case as to which style of growing Grow Maine should pursue in its future. Pesticides, fertilizers, GMOs, and the economics of American agriculture were at the heart of our discussion. And at the end of the discussion, we polled students as to which form we should pursue on our farm. Organic won the day. Now, this real-life case study that we presented to students was because we had been exploring and expanding our acreage to a new part of our farm to concentrate on growing this amazing and emerging crop sector we'd all been hearing exciting things about: grain. And like all of us nowadays, the first thing we did to begin our knowledge journey about grain was to Google growing grains in Maine. It makes sense. And one of the first results that appeared was an organization called the Maine Grain Alliance, an organization I'm now proud to be the executive director of. I started to get excited learning about how they had taken on this task of helping to breathe new life into once dormant grain economy. I learned about ongoing seed restoration efforts, small-scale equipment that met the needs of our organic farm, and most importantly, I observed a passionate, interconnected group of activators who sought out a wide and diverse community to learn from one another, with a special and deliberate concentration on the methods of organic grain production. So how did this organization become a thought leader for young organic farmers? Well, it did so by starting where most good thoughts originate, around a kitchen table. In 2007, a group of inspired community volunteers gathered in Skowhegan, Maine, and dreamed of an event that could initiate the rebuilding of the local grain economy as a way to find new economic opportunities in rural central Maine. The result was a small gathering they called the Kneading Conference, K-N-E-A-D-I-N-G. The conference was then and is now one of a kind of event. Growing from its origins in a church parking lot, it's now a nationally recognized event. It brings together grainiacs and bread buffs and breadheads from all over the country. Farmers, professional and home bakers, brewers, chefs, cooks, grain researchers, maltsters, food entrepreneurs, and wood-fired oven enthusiasts, amongst James Beard Award winners, gather to educate one another on the art and science of growing and milling grains, baking artisan breads, and brewing delicious beer. The conference features 2 full days of intensive workshops on grain topics and hands-on baking experiences where participants rub elbows with some of the world's most acclaimed bakers, brewers, and oven builders. The Kneading Conference has become a summer camp of sorts for the 250 amateur and want-to-be professional bakers and brewers that gather in Skowhegan from across the country and around the world. The Kneading Conference impact in Skowhegan and the surrounding communities has been incredible and a personal source of inspiration. People now refer to the startup enterprises that have grown out of the Kneading Conference as the Skowhegan Food Hub, and more broadly to Skowhegan as a food town. The transformation of the county jail into the Somerset grist mill, now home to Maine Grains, has spawned satellite enterprises including the expanded farmers market, a local cafe called the Miller's Table, which features flour from the attached mill and local foods from the surrounding farms, a yarn shop, and even a local community radio station. The goal of the Kneading Conference was to encourage more village bakers to open their doors, more small farms to cultivate grains for local bakeries, and more producers to master the skills of the wood-fired oven, which produces a superior loaf of bread. The conference's success led to the creation of the nonprofit Maine Grain Alliance, whose mission is to preserve and promote grain traditions from earth to table. MGA provides opportunities to learn and share how best to grow and use grains using a combination of traditional, innovative, and sustainable techniques. The Alliance promotes the beneficial uses of grain for good health, food independence, and purposeful jobs within economically viable communities. As a way to expand our educational outreach, in 2010, we also launched the Maine Artisan Bread Fair, a free annual festival dedicated to craft bread and Maine-made foods. Here at the Common Ground Fair, we had noticed that our mobile wood-fired oven was of interest to all different types of people, and that it was a great gateway for initiating conversations about why grain networks matter. We invite everyone here today to visit us over in the Farm and Homestead section. You'll see that the oven is fired and has been baking bread throughout the course of the last few days for all of the volunteers here working at the Common Ground Fair. Since that time, the Maine Grain Alliance has opened a year-round slate of educational classes and programs, and the organization has grown to include workshops on brewing, oven construction, scything, corn keeping, seed saving, and growing grains organically, amongst many other things. The Maine Grain Alliance has also started an ambitious seed restoration project, which aims to restore rare and heritage varieties of grains by turning handfuls of carefully kept seed into commercially viable quantities for farms. The project is building a supportive network of farmers that can learn from one another, share resources, and even share equipment. Additionally, we're engaging bakers in the development of marketable products using restored seed. I can remember very distinctly early on in joining the Maine Grain Alliance, Albie Barden was one of the founders of the Maine Grain Alliance, I believe also the Common Ground Fair, said to me, "Tristan, would you like to become a corn keeper?" And I thought to myself, there may not be a higher honor than that. Keeping and preserving corn varieties and seeds that are thousands of years old and in low supply are essential for not only preserving the biodiversity of seed stock, but also preserving our heritage, our culture, and a delicious and nutritious form of grain. The Maine Grain Alliance has recently restored seed for 3 different strains of einkorn, black emmer, flint corns, and several strains of rare and heritage rye and wheats. And after several years of restoration, the Maine Grain Alliance now holds the Western Hemisphere's largest supply of a rare Estonian wheat called Cervinto. Restoring and scaling Maine's grain industry is contingent upon bringing back seed varieties that are adapted to today's climate and growing season in Maine. There are not that many 80-day corn varieties left, and we need to preserve those here. Much of the work being done in Maine has been seed breeding work done by the talented Ellie Ragosa, Will Bonsall, Mark Fulford, and the University of Maine Cooperative Extension to collect and test small quantities of seed for their adaptability to Maine's growing conditions and for disease resistance and yield. Thanks to the Alameda Bee Sewell Foundation, funds were initially made available to engage organic growers in not only testing, but also rebuilding commercial quantities of diverse, locally adapted seeds from rare and unique seed varieties. And if you visit us today, over at our booth, you'll see many of those on display. Since 2013, Maine Grain Alliance has been employing experienced and interested farmers in central Maine to nurture selected varieties, pool seed yields, and scale up production capability. The goal is to multiply the seed supply of rare grains already determined to be viable in Maine's climate, and to give Maine farms a unique offering that's well suited for us. The Seed Propagation Project addresses the short-term need and is one that builds relationships, systems, and equipment that will live beyond our projects. The bottleneck in getting rare grain seed to market had not previously been addressed, and by developing these networks of growers, we've been able to exponentially increase our seed supplies in Maine. We'd encourage folks who are interested in being a part of our program to visit with us and let us know what your interests are so that we can include you in our work. By cultivating open source seed freely owned by the people, Maine preserves local varieties through natural process of adaptation and protects access to a diverse array of seeds. One of the things that we're very proud about is that the Maine Grain Alliance, in addition to the seed restoration work, has been able to help farms and grain-based businesses succeed through a technical awards mini grant system. We award technical assistance mini grants to grain-based businesses all throughout the state, and this helps to build businesses' ability to seek professional training, hire consultants, build logos, website and branding materials, and equipment with the goal of strengthening the cluster of businesses here. In Maine, what has been good for bread has been good for beer, and what has been good for beer has been good for bread, and I, for one, can get behind both of those. Both of these industries have contributed greatly to the re-energizing of the grain economy, but our regional grain is also motivated to meet organic requirements for milk, livestock, and egg production, and a consumer desire for transparency in the food system, food independence, good health, and the need for nutritious and delicious grains. The Organic Trade Association reports that consumer demand for organic products across the country is steadily rising, while the national consumption of white flour is decreasing. The Whole Grains Council reports that an increased awareness of the benefits of whole grains and a desire for heritage grains, or grains that predate modern seed manipulations, are also growing. For some, profits have been put first in a race for efficiency that no longer meets or satisfies customers' concerns and often overlooks the health of humans and the environment. We are proud to continue the good work to promote both the human health and environmental concerns, as does MOFGA. Within the last decade, national agricultural production maps didn't even recognize that Maine was growing wheat because it was producing less than 1,000 acres that were at least being reported. And less than 1/10 of 1% of grain produced in the U.S. is organic. Since the inception of the Maine Grain Alliance more than 10 years ago, the number of acres of grain being grown for human consumption have more than quadrupled. This is a real opportunity for Maine and the northeastern grain economy. National brands across the country are interested in being able to continue to create the types of infrastructure and knowledge to access our markets consistently. Farmers, like my aforementioned great-great-grandfather, would plant cover crops like winter rye or especially oats for feed and for human grade purposes. Thousands of mills dotted the countryside, and in many ways, we were largely food independent in the mid-1800s. But also, they were used to outcompete weeds and to till under, adding nutrition and water-holding carbon mass to the soil. Straw that could be used for mulch and also for livestock bedding. And during the 40s and 50s, the use of grains as a cover crop declined with the availability of chemical inputs, and grain moved from smaller independent farms to the flat, large expanses of what have now become known as the breadbasket states. Crop rotations decreased in favor of single crops that were grown year after year in these locations. This isn't the way of the Maine organic gardeners and farmers, and it shouldn't be the way that we grow grains. As we moved away from the more integrated system of grain growing, one that had been more in tune with the land and its needs, we also began to lose the knowledge of how to grow those grains organically. And it's at this point that the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association and the Maine Grain Alliance have collaborated for over a decade to help folks with knowledge of how to grow grains organically but also to reinstitute the dynamic culture of grain growing that once existed in this state. And we're happy to report that things have been going exceedingly well, and of course more can still be done. Another area that the Maine Grain Alliance is involved in has taken our efforts to scale organic grain processing to meet market demand. Demand for organic grains, as I mentioned, is growing nationwide. Businesses large and small are asking New England, and especially Maine, to play a prominent role in increasing production. By using an innovative technology specifically adapted to the Northeast climate, the Maine Grain Alliance has sought to address the critical need for appropriate drying, sorting, and storage infrastructure. We've also, as an organization, played a part in inspiring local grain projects nationwide. As new bakeries and grist mills spring up and new farms plant grains, there is an ever-increasing community to stay connected with and to learn from. With wide online audience and national partners like King Arthur Flour, La Safra Yeast, Maine Grain Alliance has inspired events in Asheville, North Carolina, Washington State, Montreal, Quebec, Plymouth, Massachusetts, and many more. So who is it that's helping us do this? Well, first, it's all of you who are here listening today. You're a critical piece in this and in our success. And we thank you in advance for sharing all of your knowledge across all of the different industries that you're a part of. Numerous charitable organizations and foundations, including the Broadreach Fund, the Quimby Family Foundation, the Maine Community Foundation, the Sewell Foundation, New England SARE, and the Betterment Fund, as along with the Bill and Joan Alphon Foundation and many others, have supported the Maine Grain Alliance's work. We are forever indebted to them. In 2012, the Betterment Fund helped the Maine Grain Alliance to provide small amounts of match funding to several central Maine grain farms and mills to purchase their first small-scale grain drying and storage equipment. In 2013, the Elamina B. Sewell Foundation funded the Maine Grain Alliance to purchase demonstration seed planting, harvesting, threshing, cleaning, and solar drying tools to work with small-scale seed growers in central Maine. As a business member of the Maine Grain Alliance, we're able to share these tools with our community and with folks who are needing appropriate scaled, small-scale equipment. In 2014 and 2015, Allagash Brewing Company and the Quimby Family Foundation collectively awarded the Maine Grain Alliance $20,000 to re-grant to 30 small grain-based businesses in Maine for technical assistance and equipment needs. And as I mentioned, in 2016, we've tackled a year-long study addressing appropriately scaled infrastructure for drying and storing, made possible by the Maine Technology Institute. Some of the folks that are the true innovators of this organization across the industry, you can visit with here today. I'm going to tell you about some of them that you should go and say hi to. One of the first, and truly one of the pioneers of the local grain resurgence that we've seen in Maine, are Jim Amaral of Borealis Bread, and Matt Williams, and now his daughter Sarah Flewelling of Aurora Mills and Farm. In 2002, Jim was looking for a way to say, can we grow grain here for bakeries? I want to use this in my bakery in a really deliberate way, and I need a partner to do this. He partnered with Matt Williams, and together, Borealis Bread and Aurora Mills was formed, and it wasn't until much later that I realized that Aurora and Borealis were meant to be together. The University of Maine Cooperative Extension could see what was happening. They had their finger on the pulse of what needed to be done in this emerging market, and they were able to create the Local Bread and Wheat Project that helped to inform much of the data that we have around different types of wheat varieties, trial work, and also was able to take a group of folks to Europe to study grain systems that were different than ones that we have come to know as popular inside of the United States. The Douses, who are here, are inspiration to me and are very involved in the organization of this fair. Dusty Douse, who's a former professor of biology and mathematics at the University of Maine, could, if he wanted to, break down all of the technical glutenase structures and go into the deep dive of yeast and everything else that goes into bread baking. But what he really loves is the magic of baking, and you can see him here at this fair doing that, as he has started Amistad Bakery and continues to serve as the baking education director for us, teaching likely thousands of folks over the years how to use local grains and baking methods. I mentioned previously the mill that exists in Skowhegan, Somerset Grist Mill, that is now Maine Grains. Inspired by the Kneading Conference and the lack of statewide infrastructure for processing grain, Amber Lamke and her business partner Michael Schultz led a 5-year effort to research and develop a grist mill in Skowhegan. They had purchased and installed equipment and have launched their operations for a number of years out of the former county jail. And I'd encourage everyone to go and check this out if you've never been. One of the things that I've noticed is how media has taken to our story. We've been chronicled by the likes of the New York Times, the Boston Globe, and a number of others over the years, Savor Magazine. And one thing that stands out that I think is fascinating is telling of our opportunity in this state is that 2 years ago, a TV magazine based in Boston called Chronicle came to our Kneading Conference to capture our story in a 30-minute segment. We thought that was pretty special, and they created a really great show. But I think what we didn't expect was that the airing of that segment in the suburban Boston markets and in Boston itself literally spurred hundreds of folks to visit Central Maine, to visit with innovators like the Bankery and Matt Dubois in downtown Skowhegan, who had turned an old bank into one of the heartbeats of that community. To visit with the mill, and bakeries from around the Northeast started to contact mills and different organizations within our state to purchase grains from our producers. There are now over 120 craft breweries in our state of Maine. In 2009, there were only 30. The state boasts 2 amazing facilities, Blue Ox Malt House in Lisbon, of which we are proud to have given a technical assistance grant early to the founder, Joel Alex, to learn about malting practices, and another remarkable establishment in Aroostook County, Maine Malt House on Buck Farms. This has enabled the preparation of Maine-grown grain for use for brewers. Maine brewers are using millions of pounds of grain per year. With hops taking much of the grain, some do not realize that outside of water, barley and grain account for the vast majority of what goes into beer. It accounts for its taste and for its color. The Maine Brewers Guild is committed to partnering the promotion and support of Maine's grain economy to ensure its continued success, as well as access many brewers to locally produced and processed ingredients. The brewing industry here in Maine is known for its high degree of collaboration and innovation, which is helping to drive rapid economic growth. One need not look further than our own Kneading Conference, where attendees can attend a workshop from celebrated brewmaster Jason Perkins of Allagash Brewing Company, where he teaches eager students how best to use local inputs in his brews. Food and beverages produced in Maine stand to benefit regionally from their inherent trust and integrity that comes with the authenticity and sustainability of the Maine brand. And yet our small farms and food processors struggle to scale up to meet our regional and export demand. This is work for all of us to do to help expand this opportunity. But businesses like Allagash Brewing Company are helping farms plan for the future. They announced a year and a half ago now that they would be purchasing over 1 million pounds of local grains by 2021. To put that in perspective, last year they had purchased about 60,000 pounds. This year they have doubled that, and they have continued to increase that production as we are able to meet the demands that are required. They chose a hard number rather than a percentage to give farmers a concrete number to shoot for, while making sure that they increase their use of local grain no matter how much they grow. They source from a diverse community of folks, including folks you can visit with here, Aurora Mills and Farms, Maine Grains, Blue Ox Malt House, Maine Malt House, among others. Still, even small breweries have made a gigantic impact on the brewing side. Bigelow Brewing Company has from all of the beers that they're created, used 100% of their base malt with Maine-grown barley and malt. New Americans are making a tremendous impact in our state, and especially in grain as well. We were honored this past year at our Kneading Conference to be able to award scholarships to the Somali Bantu community and a number of farmers to come and learn in an immersive flint corn experience about our methods for growing corn in this state. It was incredible to learn from them about their heritage of grain growing and to listen to some of the difficulties that they have had in their home countries and the differences in agricultural farming here in Maine. Many of them, I learned, were accustomed to growing on floodplains, that now the land that they have do not have that, so it's been a very difficult transition. But we're really proud to play at least a small part in helping to restore some of the ability for them to grow flint corn, which is very important to their own traditions. You also have, and again, the Maine Grain Alliance is proud to have been inspired originally by many, many bakers. And today you'll find bread, some of the best bread that's created in the entire country here in Maine and even at this fair. Carrie Haney of Night Moves Bread, Jeff Lisa Deck of Brazen Baking are leading the way, using huge percentages of what their flour needs are from locally grown stone ground flour. I just had the privilege of leading a group of investors who are looking at grain as a potential area to invest in the future on the business side. This was just over a week ago. And what was amazing was the breadth and the experience of the different businesses that were highlighted. We had everything from crackers to flour to malt houses to breweries to working potato farms, to hops farms even, being highlighted throughout the experience. And what really came to light is that to create this passionate, interconnected community that we are talking about today, we need to visit and learn from one another. Go to the homes of the folks who are creating your products, not just in grain, but across all different types of agriculture. Support them, buy their products, but especially listen to their stories. The title of this presentation, as you heard earlier, is Growing Together, Reaping the Rewards of a Passionate, Interconnected Community. And I know I've illustrated many, and I could likely go on and do so for much of the day. But I want to leave you with at least two observances that I've come to see and notice just in this past week. We tend to, in Maine, wear a lot of hats, and that's good, because it helps to cross-pollinate ideas, and it helps us to connect with one another. During the Grain Investor Tour, we visited the University of Maine Presque Isle, which Presque Isle, of course, is in Aroostook County in the northernmost part of the state, and they have just developed a sustainable agriculture program. They have made a very exciting announcement of a very large gift that will enable them to do amazing work in a community that is excited about farming and sustainability. One of the heads of that program is Jason Johnson, a professor of biology there. And Jason gave us a great tour and overview of the future of what that could hold for farms and for their students. But Jason also wears another hat, which is the lead hop grower and owner of Aroostook Hops, which we then toured later on that day. And as I thought about it, I was there in my capacity as a leader of the grain movement in some ways in Maine, the Maine Grain Alliance, but also as part of an initiative that has taken launch to help promote the Maine brand through the Taste Maine's Future platform, and also as a farmer. And I thought, well, there's 3 hats that I wear. And then, to make things even more interconnected, once we left the hops farm, I spoke with Jason, and wearing my farm hat, told him that I would transport his fresh hops to breweries throughout the state on our refrigerated trailers the following day. So this is the network that we've created, and it's important that we all take time to learn about all the different things that are being done. One last fascinating interconnected story takes place just 2 days ago. We were privileged to be invited to a group of folks who met the Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Perdue, along with Senator King and Congresswoman Pingree at Jordan Farms at Cape Elizabeth. We were able to give a short presentation about our work and highlight some of the programs that continue to be important and also some of the challenges that we see laid before us. But what was fascinating to me was that of the 30 or so people who were there, everyone more or less knew one another. There were farms represented, there were nonprofits represented, there were community organizations represented, and we all had a different piece that we were taking on. Many mutual circles of reinforcement that were there. And I think it was wonderful to see the last person speak, Michelle Wolf of Bumbleroot Farm, who has recently started an organic farm in southern Maine, tie everything together. She said, I came to Maine, was a part of the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association Journey Person program and learned my craft there. I then needed to secure farmland, and so I spoke with Maine Farmland Trust and Land for Good and found land that was going to be desirable for my family. I then spoke with Coastal Enterprise Incorporated and found ways to be able to finance the land through them. I then got that land and speak with everyone in this room about how to make this a passionate, interconnected community farm. So we're beginning to reap the rewards of creating this interconnected community of grainiacs. All those who love real bread are helping to shepherd in this new era. This is the work of people who are passionate and full of life. The energy and interest from all segments of the grain community is giving rise to village bakeries. Locally grown and milled flour has allowed bakeries to join the local food movement in new ways and thus address customer demand. Bakers are baking in their own wood-fired oven with flour they may have milled on their own mill from a local grain from a nearby farmer. These same bakers have been inspired to innovate and seek the freshest possible ingredients and understand grain varieties as they relate to differences in flavor. Young farmers are looking to move to grain like their great-great-grandparents before them. A century ago, a farmer, there existed a deep network from which they could learn about grain and about other agricultural products. Thanks to the growing grain communities from across the U.S. and Canada, that network is returning. Where once tools and infrastructure fit the scale and scope of a farm, shared infrastructure and tools are once again becoming available. This is the work that the Maine Grain Alliance has deep interest in as we look to the future. Where one tiller of grain might have existed, the building of relationships and the sharing of resources are causing many tillers to spring forth from the ground. The result is certainly a more bountiful harvest for each and every one of us who loves organic and celebrates rural living. Thank you so much. It is one of the deepest honors I've had to speak with you here in a place that has inspired me to become an organic farmer. Thank you so much.